The private garage of the sprawling estate in the heart of New York buzzed with the low hum of luxury engines as Khalil al-Hassan, a 42-year-old Arab tycoon who had built his fortune in tech imports, slid into his sleek black Ferrari, ready for another day of high-stakes meetings, his mind already racing through the negotiations ahead, the contracts to sign, and the deals that could expand his empire even further. But just as he turned the key, a shrill voice pierced the air like a sudden alarm, shouting, "Don't drive! Your wife cut the brakes," which made Khalil freeze, his hands still on the ignition, his heart skipping a beat as he peered through the tinted window to see a small figure, a barefoot black girl no older than 10, with wild curls matted from street life and clothes ragged from endless nights outdoors. Somehow having slipped past the high-tech security gates that were supposed to keep intruders out, her thin frame trembling as she pounded on the car door with surprising determination for someone so young and frail, her eyes wide with urgency that seemed far beyond her years, as if she carried the weight of experiences no child should know. And Security Chief Marcus, a burly veteran with a no-nonsense glare etched from years of protecting the elite, lunged forward without hesitation, barking, "Hey kid, this ain't a playground scram before I call the cops," as he grabbed her arm roughly but not harshly, trying to pull her away, yet she twisted like a feral cat in his grip, her eyes never leaving Khalil, pleading, "Please, sir, listen to me, she did it last night. I saw her," with a voice that cracked under the strain but held firm in its conviction. And Khalil, intrigued and unsettled by the raw emotion in her tone, stepped out of the car, his tailored suit contrasting sharply with her disheveled state, a chill running through him because her plea wasn't the usual beg for change or food that he had encountered from time to time in the city streets. There was something deeper, a raw panic in her voice, the kind that came from witnessing something truly alarming, something that resonated with genuine concern rather than deceit. So he commanded Marcus to let her speak, watching as the guard released her reluctantly, grumbling under his breath about how this could be a setup or a distraction. But Khalil waved him off, turning his full attention to the girl who gasped for breath, wiping sweat from her brow despite the cool morning air. And she continued, "Your wife, she was in here after dark, messing with the car, tools everywhere. She whispered on her phone about an accident that would fix everything, her words tumbling out in a rush as if she feared being interrupted or dismissed before she could convey the full message." And Khalil's mind raced, flashing back to his wife Elena, 36, a stunning brunette with a mysterious European background that had always added an air of intrigue to their marriage. But lately she had been distant, canceling trips they had planned for months, locking herself in rooms with hushed calls that she brushed off as work-related. But sabotage, an attempt on his life, it seemed too far-fetched, too dramatic for his orderly world. Yet he couldn't shake the doubt that crept in like a shadow. So he said, "You're making this up," though his voice lacked the conviction he intended, and the girl shook her head fiercely, her curls bouncing wildly. "I wouldn't lie. My name's Zara Thompson. I camp out near your fence sometimes. It's quiet, safer than the alleys where dangers lurk at every corner," explaining how the estate's perimeter offered a rare sense of security in her otherwise precarious existence. "And last night, I heard clanging metal and peeked over. Blonde hair, fancy dress, she cut lines under the engine, said you'd never suspect." Her description painting a vivid picture that matched Elena's style too closely for comfort, and Marcus snorted dismissively. "Boss, this is nuts. Probably wants a handout, or is part of some scheme to get inside." But Khalil, sensing there might be truth in the girl's earnest eyes, waved him off again and ordered, "Check the car." Now, his tone brooking no argument, and grumbling, Marcus knelt under the Ferrari, his flashlight scanning the undercarriage meticulously, examining every hose and wire with the expertise of someone who had seen his share of mechanical issues. And minutes later, he emerged pale, his usual stoic expression replaced by one of shock. "Holy. The brake lines are severed clean. If you'd hit the highway curves, it'd be over in an instant." His words hanging in the air like a verdict, confirming the unimaginable, and the world tilted for Khalil, a wave of nausea washing over him as the implications sank in. The trust he had placed in his marriage now fracturing like glass, and he turned to Zara, who clutched a worn backpack like a shield against the world, her small hands gripping it tightly. "How did you get in here? Why risk it all to tell me?" he asked, his voice softer now, laced with gratitude and curiosity, and tears welled in her eyes, spilling over her dirt-streaked cheeks. "Because I know what happens next, my folks. They died in a crash like that. Brakes failed. I was there in the back, survived by miracle, swore I'd stop it if I saw it again." Her story unfolding like a tragic tale, revealing the scars of loss that had shaped her young life, the pain evident in every word. And Khalil's phone buzzed insistently, Elena's name flashing on the screen with a message, "Darling, when are you home?" Feeling better today, but he ignored it, his gut twisting with suspicion, and he instructed Marcus, "Secure the grounds, no one leaves," ensuring the estate was locked down like a fortress. Then to Zara he said, "Come inside, you're safe now," leading her into the mansion where the opulent interiors, with marble floors and crystal chandeliers, must have seemed like another world to her, a stark contrast to the harsh realities she knew. And they moved to the grand study, lined with bookshelves filled with volumes on business strategy and global economics, where Zara perched on a leather chair, dwarfed by its size, looking around with wide-eyed wonder. And when Khalil's staff brought her a sandwich and a glass of juice, she devoured it hungrily, her appetite revealing days, perhaps weeks, of scarcity. And Khalil urged gently, "Tell me more," wanting to understand the full scope of what she had witnessed. And Zara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. She looked sneaky, glancing around all the time. On the phone, she said, "It'll look natural. The payout's ours." Then she hid the tools in a box by the wall, her details sharp and precise, as if etched into her memory. And Khalil paced the room, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor, piecing it together in his mind, recalling how Elena had pushed for that new insurance policy recently, millions in coverage that she had justified as health reasons. But now it all seemed sinister, a calculated plan unfolding before his eyes, and he picked up his phone to call his old friend, Attorney Jamal Reed, a sharp-minded black lawyer specializing in corporate fraud who had helped him navigate tricky deals in the past, saying, "Jamal, I need you here. Fast, possible attempt on my life," his voice steady but urgent. And while waiting for Jamal to arrive, Zara shared fragments of her life in quiet tones, describing how she had been orphaned young after the tragic loss of her parents, bouncing between shelters that offered little warmth or stability, eventually finding the streets her reluctant home where she learned to survive through wits and caution. "People look through me, like I'm a ghost. But I see things they miss," she said with a wisdom that belied her age, and Khalil nodded, truly seeing her now not as an intruder but as a survivor with a keen observational skill honed by necessity. And when Jamal arrived, briefcase in hand, his presence commanding and reassuring, he listened intently to Zara's account, his brow furrowing in concentration, and afterward he frowned. "This is serious, Khalil. But a kid's word alone? Courts need solid proof to hold up." And they reviewed the security cams together, the grainy footage showing a hooded figure tampering with the car, the face obscured by shadows but the build and movements eerily familiar. "That's her build," Zara insisted firmly, pointing at the screen with a small finger, and as evening fell, casting long shadows across the room, Elena returned from what she claimed was a shopping trip, her arms laden with designer bags that spoke of luxury. "Honey, what's with the extra guards?" she asked, her smile faltering noticeably when she spotted Zara sitting there. "Who's this, child?" her tone laced with surprise and a hint of disdain. And Khalil studied her closely, watching for any sign of guilt. "She claims you tried to sabotage my car," he said evenly, testing the waters, and Elena laughed nervously, a sound that rang hollow in the tense atmosphere. Absurd, must be a scam or some misunderstanding, but Zara stood tall despite her small stature, her voice clear. "I recognize you from the shadows last night," and the tension thickened like a gathering storm, with Jamal whispering discreetly, "Watch her reactions carefully," noting how Elena's eyes darted around the room, a classic tell of someone cornered, and Elena muttered, "I need air," retreating upstairs in a hurry, her footsteps echoing on the grand staircase. And Khalil turned to Zara with a mix of awe and resolve. "You might have just saved me from a terrible fate," and she shrugged modestly. Anyone would have done the same, but he knew better, realizing that this girl, invisible to the world in her daily struggles, had pierced through the armor of his privileged life with her bravery, and little did he know, This was just the spark igniting a larger fire of revelation and change that would reshape everything he thought he knew about trust, family, and the unexpected bonds that can form in the most unlikely circumstances. As the night deepened and plans were set in motion for what would come next, the estate quiet but alive with unspoken questions hanging in the air like unspoken promises of justice and new beginnings waiting to unfold in the chapters yet to come. In the dim glow of his home office, where the walls were adorned with framed awards from international business summits and the air carried the faint scent of polished oak furniture, Khalil pored over stacks of documents alongside Jamal, their faces illuminated by the soft blue light of multiple laptop screens, while Zara dozed fitfully on a plush guest couch nearby, her small body curled up under a borrowed blanket, exhausted from the whirlwind of events that had upended her already chaotic life, her breathing steady but occasionally interrupted by soft murmurs as if reliving the day's tensions in her dreams. And Jamal, ever the methodical professional with his sleeves rolled up and glasses perched on his nose, leaned forward and said, "We need leverage to build a solid case," his fingers tapping rapidly on the keyboard as he initiated a series of discreet searches through legal databases and private networks he had access to from years in the field. Let's dig into Elena's past, starting with her claimed background. And what emerged from those initial queries was a web of anomalies that sent a ripple of unease through the room, her so-called family business in Europe turning out to be nothing more than a series of ghost entities, shell companies registered in obscure jurisdictions with vanished records and no traceable assets. The kind of setup that screamed deliberate obfuscation rather than legitimate enterprise. And as Khalil absorbed this, his jaw tightening with each revelation, Zara stirred from her slumber, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand and sitting up slowly, her wild curls even more disarrayed, blinking against the light as she murmured, "She reminds me of someone from my old life." Something about her eyes or the way she moves, her voice still heavy with sleep but carrying an undercurrent of certainty that made Khalil kneel down beside her, his expensive suit wrinkling without a second thought, and he asked gently, "What do you mean, Zara?" "Take your time," encouraging her to share without pressure. And hesitant at first, she reached into her worn backpack, pulling out a faded photograph that had clearly been handled many times, its edges frayed and colors softened by age, showing her parents smiling warmly in what looked like a modest backyard gathering, their arms around a younger version of herself, and she explained Dad worked at a shipping firm downtown, handling logistics for imports. He caught someone stealing valuable cargo, reported it quietly at first, but then the crash happened, brakes gone just like yours. I hid in the shadows after the funeral, scared and alone. But I saw a woman at the scene earlier, watching from afar, blonde hair peeking from under a hat, like her, the connection dawning on her face as she pointed vaguely toward the direction Elena had retreated, and Jamal's eyes widened behind his glasses, leaning in to examine the photo as he muttered, "Connect the dots here. If Elena's involved in something similar, this could be bigger than we thought." And they dove deeper, cross-referencing details from Zara's story with public records and Jamal's confidential contacts in law enforcement, uncovering that Elena's real name appeared to be Sophia Grant based on mismatched passport scans and old visa applications, a fugitive alias linked to fraud cases in multiple cities across the continent. "She's married rich men before this," Jamal revealed with a grave tone, pulling up digitized court filings on his screen. "All met unfortunate accidents, car failures, sudden falls from heights, even boating mishaps, with payouts funneled through offshore accounts that vanish like smoke, the pattern emerging as a chilling blueprint of calculated opportunism." And Khalil felt his blood boil, a surge of anger mixing with the sting of betrayal as he paced the room, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet, questioning aloud, "Why me? Why target my life like this?" To which Jamal shrugged thoughtfully, adjusting his tie. "Your empire makes you an easy mark, high profile but isolated, perfect for someone weaving into your world unnoticed." And together they strategized a confrontation, deciding to invite her down under the pretense of discussing the day's odd events, probing gently to gauge her reactions without tipping their hand too soon. But before they could act, Sophia, still known to them as Elena, descended the grand staircase first, her silk robe flowing elegantly around her like a veil of normalcy, a glass of deep red wine cradled in her manicured hand as she entered the office with a feigned yawn. "Can't sleep with all this nonsense swirling around. What's the plan now? Her voice light but her eyes scanning the room sharply, lingering a fraction too long on Zara, who shrank back instinctively into the couch cushions, though she whispered to Khalil. That's her voice from the phone last night, the same clipped accent. And emboldened by this, Khalil confronted her directly, his tone measured but firm. The insurance policy we discussed recently, you forged my signature on it, didn't you? Watching as Elena's facade cracked ever so slightly, a flicker of alarm crossing her features before she recovered with a dismissive wave. What? No, that's ridiculous. Must be a mix-up at the agency. But Jamal, anticipating this, produced a stack of printouts from his briefcase, spreading them across the desk like evidence in a courtroom. This ties directly to a network of corrupt adjusters and specialists disguised as everyday mechanics, the same methods used in those other cases, his words landing like blows, and panic flashed openly in Elena's eyes now, her composure shattering as she bolted suddenly for the door, her wineglass dropping and spilling across the floor in a crimson stain. But Marcus, who had been stationed just outside as a precaution, blocked her path with his imposing frame, crossing his arms and growling. Going somewhere in such a hurry? Which made her spin around wildly, her hand grabbing a nearby decorative vase from a side table, heavy crystal that she hurled with surprising force toward the group, chaos erupting in an instant as shards flew through the air like glittering projectiles, Zara ducking low with a yelp to avoid the debris that scattered across the room. And in the midst of the frenzy, she yelled out, "She's the one, the woman from my parents' accident. Dad exposed her theft ring at the firm. That's why they targeted him." Her accusation cutting through the noise like a clarion call, and Elena sneered viciously, her elegant mask fully discarded to reveal a contorted expression of defiance. "You little pest. Should have made sure you were out of the picture too back then." Her words dripping with venom that confirmed every suspicion, and adrenaline surged through Khalil like a tidal wave, propelling him forward as she lunged toward Zara with outstretched hands, but he tackled her mid-stride, pinning her to the ground with his weight while Jamal swiftly dialed the authorities on his phone, his voice calm amid the turmoil. "Emergency services. Attempted assault in progress. Send units immediately to this address." And within minutes the police swarmed the estate, their flashing lights painting the walls in alternating blue and red hues, officers cuffing Elena amid her frantic rants and struggles. "You don't get it. It's bigger than me partners who clean up messes like this. They'll come for you all." Her threats echoing down the hallway as she was led away. And later in the stark fluorescent-lit interrogation room at the precinct, Elena confessed partially under the weight of mounting evidence presented by Jamal, naming a boyfriend named Victor Kane as her primary accomplice, an insurance insider with a knack for orchestrating these so-called accidents. "He plans the details. I execute the integrations into their lives," she admitted grudgingly, her defiance waning as the reality of capture set in. And meanwhile, Zara, kept safe in a quiet precinct lounge with a vending machine soda in hand, used crayons provided by a kind officer to draw sketches of Victor based on overheard descriptions from Elena's late-night calls. Tall guy, scar on his left cheek, always wears dark coats, her artistic rendering surprisingly detailed for her age, and Jamal coordinated swift raids using this intel, directing teams to Victor's suspected hideout in a nondescript warehouse on the city's outskirts, where they uncovered tools matching the sabotage on Khalil's car wire cutters with residue, blueprints for vehicle tampering, plus files on past victims that included heartbreaking details about Zara's family. "Your dad was a whistleblower, uncovered their cargo theft operation hidden within legitimate shipments," Jamal explained softly to her later, his hand on her shoulder in a gesture of support. "They silenced him to protect the scheme, but you survived to expose it all." And Khalil watched Elena's formal booking from behind a one-way glass, the betrayal burning like acid in his chest. 5 years of marriage, all a meticulously crafted lie, he whispered to himself. But Zara's small hand slipping into his grounded him back to the present, her voice reassuring, "Not all lies, though. You have real friends now, people who see you for who you are." And as dawn broke over the city skyline, painting the buildings in soft golden light, arrests rippled outward like a chain reaction, Victor apprehended in a dramatic takedown, his accomplices rounded up across several states in coordinated operations, with evidence mounting in the form of forged policies, tampered vehicle logs, and digital trails of laundered funds. Yet even amid this progress, danger lingered in the shadows. A. Anonymous tip filtering through Jamal's contacts. Warning. They're targeting the kid now. Witness elimination to tie up loose ends, which prompted Khalil to whisk Zara away immediately to a secure safe house, a cozy apartment high above the bustling streets with panoramic views of the twinkling city lights, equipped with reinforced doors and surveillance that made it feel like a fortress disguised as a home. And there, away from the immediate threats, she opened up more about her street survival tricks, demonstrating how she could pick safe spots to rest by reading, building layouts, or using discarded newspapers as insulation against the cold, her dreams spilling out tentatively of attending school one day, learning to read advanced books. Never had a real bed that was mine, always moving, she confessed with a shy smile, and Khalil returned the smile warmly, promising, "You will have that and more. Starting tonight," arranging for fresh clothes and meals delivered discreetly. And meanwhile Jamal delved deeper, uncovering the network's central hub, a fake consultancy firm posing as a legitimate business advisor, laundering millions through complex financial maneuvers that could topple minor empires if fully exposed. "This operation has tentacles everywhere, but we're severing them one by one," he reported during a secure video call. And subsequent raids followed in quick succession, federal agents seizing assets from hidden vaults and servers. Elena's full confession extracted under the pressure of irrefutable proof and promises of leniency for cooperation. "Victor promised me a paradise life after the big scores. But that girl, she saw too much. Ruined the perfect setup," she lamented in transcripts that Jamal shared. And back in the safe house, with the city humming below like a distant symphony, Zara taught Khalil simple card games she had learned from other street kids, their laughter echoing softly for the first time in what felt like ages. "You're not like the others, rich but actually kind, not just pretending," she observed between deals, and he reflected inwardly on how his isolated wealth had blinded him to the world's undercurrents, creating a bubble that this crisis had burst wide open, now forging an alliance born from shared adversity that hinted at deeper, more meaningful bonds waiting to develop. But even as moments of levity emerged, the storm wasn't fully past. Justice still demanded a final reckoning in the halls of law, where truths would be laid bare and futures redefined, setting the stage for transformations that would echo far beyond the confines of one man's estate or one girl's resilient spirit, as alliances strengthened and shadows receded in the light of unfolding revelations. Suy near Trong 13 Seshi. The federal courthouse in the bustling heart of the city hummed with a palpable anticipation that morning, the grand halls echoing with the murmurs of reporters and spectators who had gathered like moths to a flame, drawn by the sensational headlines that had dominated news cycles for weeks. And Khalil sat composed on a polished wooden bench in the gallery, his hand gently holding Zara's smaller one, now clad in a crisp sundress that fluttered slightly with her nervous fidgeting, her once wild curls neatly braided and adorned with subtle ribbons that caught the light from the high windows, months of consistent care and nourishment evident in her brighter eyes and fuller cheeks, a transformation that spoke volumes of the stability she had found. And Jamal prepped them quietly in the moments before proceedings began, his briefcase open on his lap, revealing neatly organized files and notes, whispering, "Her testimony will seal this airtight. We've got forensics, confessions, the whole chain." To which Zara nodded resolutely, clutching a new stuffed lion toy that had become her talisman of courage, squeezing it as she affirmed, "I'm ready, for my parents and for everyone else they've hurt," her voice carrying a maturity honed by adversity but softened by the security of newfound support. And as Elena revealed fully as Sophia Grant entered the courtroom in a standard-issue jumpsuit that stripped away her former glamour, her gaze sweeping the room with a mix of resentment and calculation, landing briefly on Zara with a glare that could chill the air. The trial unfolded methodically like a well-rehearsed symphony of justice, prosecutors laying out the intricate scheme with precision, detailing how dozens of unsuspecting individuals had been ensnared in webs of deceit, their lives upended by fabricated accidents designed solely for financial gain. Charts projected on screens illustrating the flow of illicit funds through labyrinthine accounts, witness after witness recounting patterns of manipulation that spanned years and borders. And when Zara took the stand, the room fell into a hushed reverence, her small frame elevated by the witness box as she spoke clearly into the microphone. "I saw her cut the brakes that night, heard her plotting on the phone about how it would all look like a mishap, and beyond that, She was the shadow in my family's story too, the one who orchestrated their end, because my dad uncovered her secrets at his job, her words painting a vivid narrative that connected personal loss to the broader conspiracy, and under cross-examination by the defense, who probed gently for inconsistencies. Zara remained unflappable, her responses direct and unembellished, drawing nods from the jury who leaned forward attentively, and the defense's arguments crumbled visibly under the weight of irrefutable evidence audio recordings from Jamal's quick thinking, forensic matches on tools seized from hideouts, digital footprints tracing communications between Sophia and her network, and Sophia's courtroom outburst came midway, her composure fracturing as she stood abruptly, pointing accusingly. It was just business, a way to survive in a world that chews up the weak. You all act like saints, but it's eat or be eaten out there. Her words met with stern admonitions from the judge, who banged the gavel to restore order, but the jury saw through the veneer, perceiving the lack of remorse as further indictment, and after deliberations that stretched into the afternoon, the verdict rang out clear and unanimous, guilty on all counts including fraud, conspiracy, and the orchestration of events leading to irreparable harm, with a sentence of life without parole delivered solemnly, the courtroom erupting in a subdued wave of reactions as Sophia was led away, turning one last time to spit venomously at Zara. "You'll regret crossing paths with me someday," but Zara met her gaze steadily, whispering later to Khalil, "I pity her now, trapped in her own choices, never knowing the warmth of genuine connections, her empathy a testament to her growth beyond bitterness." And in the aftermath of the trial, as media swarmed outside with flashing cameras and probing questions, Khalil navigated the crowd protectively with Zara by his side, filing adoption papers that very week in a quieter legal chamber, proposing Zara al-Hassan as her new name with a hopeful smile, and tears flowed freely between them, a mix of joy and release as she exclaimed, "A family? For real? With holidays and stories at night?" And Jamal expedited the process with his expertise, ensuring layers of protection, dedicated bodyguards, advanced security systems at the estate, ongoing alerts monitoring any remnants of the dismantled network which had seen over 20 arrests worldwide. From low-level operatives to high-placed enablers, and life began to bloom in vibrant new ways for them both, Zara enrolling in an elite private school where her innate curiosity flourished, particularly in science classes where she dreamed aloud of inventing cars that can't be tampered with, safe for everyone on the road, her grades soaring as teachers noted her quick grasp of concepts and eagerness to collaborate. And inspired by her resilience, Khalil channeled his resources into launching Zara's Shield Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to aiding at-risk youth through innovative programs, mobile tech units distributing safety apps that connected kids to resources, scholarships funding education for those from unstable backgrounds, community centers offering mentorship and skills training. And the foundation's inaugural event was a glittering gala held in a grand ballroom overlooking the city lights, raising millions from philanthropists and corporate donors, moved by Zara's keynote speech where she stood poised at the podium, her voice amplified and confident. "One voice can shatter the silence that lets wrongs persist. I was once invisible on the streets, overlooked and alone, but now I help others shine by sharing opportunities and hope." Her words eliciting standing ovations and pledges that expanded the initiative's reach, and their daily routine settled into a comforting rhythm that contrasted sharply with past uncertainties, mornings filled with breakfast debates over world news headlines, where Zara challenged Khalil's views on global issues with fresh perspectives drawn from her unique experiences, afternoons in the park where she delighted in feeding birds and sketching inventions in a notebook he had gifted her, evenings winding down with shared stories under the stars on the estate's terrace. And Khalil confided one such night, "You saved me from more than just a rigged car, from an emptiness I didn't even recognize in my pursuit of success," to which she hugged him tightly, replying, "We saved each other, like pieces of a puzzle finding their fit." And as years unfolded, marked not by calendars but by milestones, Zara grew into a teenager at a global summit on youth empowerment, keynoting alongside world leaders with poise that belied her age, declaring privilege isn't true power, unless it's shared to uplift those without it. My dad showed me that through actions, not just words, and the foundation by then spanned continents, establishing branches in bustling metropolises and remote areas alike, rescuing thousands from precarious situations through holistic support, vocational training in tech fields, emotional counseling circles, advocacy for policy changes that protected vulnerable populations. And Khalil, once a solitary mogul focused solely on boardrooms and bottom lines, discovered profound joy in hands-on involvement, leading mentorship programs where he shared business acumen with aspiring young entrepreneurs, developing innovative tech solutions like AI-driven alert systems for orphan networks to prevent exploitation, and occasional prison letters from Sophia arrived over time, filled with regrets and pleas for understanding that went largely unheeded, though Zara chose to respond once with a handwritten note of her own, encouraging forgive yourself and seek ways to start over. Even in confinement, growth is possible anywhere, her compassion serving as a quiet weapon against lingering shadows. And in the quiet evenings back at the estate, now alive with the sounds of laughter and learning, Khalil would tuck her in despite her protests of being too old for that now, sharing tales of distant deserts and twinkling stars from his heritage. And one night she asked thoughtfully, "How did you know to choose me, out of all the paths life could have taken?" Prompting him to reflect with a warm chuckle. Fate, perhaps, or those stray cats. I always fed scraps to you, noticed that kindness from afar, and it called to something in you, just as your bravery called to me. And she grinned sleepily, adding kindness calls to kindness, like echoes building into something stronger, and their shared tale rippled outward in inspirational circles, whispered in TED-style talks and community forums as a beacon of how a single act of courage could topple entrenched deceptions and birth waves of positive change, proving that heroes emerge from the most overlooked corners, and that family, in its truest form, blooms from deliberate choices to nurture and uplift, weaving threads of support that endure through trials and triumphs alike. As bonds deepened and legacies took root in the fertile ground of mutual respect and unwavering commitment to bettering the world one compassionate step at a time, with the city lights twinkling below like stars aligned in their favor, heralding endless possibilities for the journeys still ahead.